Hey Zoe, so today we're going to be doing your owl that you sent me. Keep in mind whenever we do these paintings that the pigments are going to be different compared to the ones that I have and also the ones that you have at home. So we're going to first start with the background. I drew on the owl first, so whenever we do draw on the owl, look at the picture that you had sent me, and what you're going to do is you're going to do a U for the owl's head, the top, and then basically you're just going to draw like a circle underneath there, so you're going to connect them. So there's going to have 2 points for the ears. The wings right here are going to be upside down teardrops for each wing, one on each side. And then you've got your 2 eyes. And then right here is going to be the beak, which is also going to be an upside down teardrop. And you've got your feet. I just put 3 little like half circles. And then you've got your tree. So your tree, you can be exactly the same as that you had that you sent me. Very whimsical kind of branch. You're going to have a tree at the bottom down here, and then you've got your leaves. And the background is just going to be your circle for the moon. So I'll bring it a little bit closer. I did it in watercolor pencil. So there you go. I'll kind of leave it here for you to see. Watercolor pencil. It's a lot better than the lead, because the lead will actually end up bleeding through the paint, and then you'll still see it behind your painting at the very end. So just make sure that you use watercolor pencils. If you want, you can even use chalk. Chalk just gets absorbed, so chalk is just fine if you have that also. Okay, so the background we're going to do, it's going to be very wet, so it's going to be kind of like watercolor. So just make sure that you're using your big brush, and the big brush is about inch. I believe, yeah, this is the inch. So make sure that it's wet, and we're gonna start from the top corner, and we're gonna work our way down. It's gonna be in an angled pattern, so just make sure that it's in an angle. And the top corner that we're gonna do up here on this side is gonna be a light. I'm gonna start off with blue, and then we can go back and add a little bit of black in there. So make sure that everything's very watery, very, very watery. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to do angle brushes back and forth here. And it's okay if it bleeds. Just keep working it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Just going to pick up the watery paint, back and forth colors. If you get it too wet, it'll start to drip. That's okay. Just pick it up and put some paint on the back of that again. So I'm going to keep doing this, and we're going to go about down to here, because that's where it's going to start to get pink. So just go back all the way down. Again, everything stays very wet. Back and forth. It's okay if the ones that are a little bit bolder in color, that's alright. It just gives it more character when you do that. As you can see, mine is kind of dripping on the background right there. That's alright. Just work it back and forth, back and forth. Make sure that it's nice and liquid, very wet. Now, because I use watercolor pencil, mine's actually kind of disappearing in the background, but it actually just helps me see where my owl was at in the first place, which is okay. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to pick up some of our pink. So I'm going to wipe off my blue, and I have some magenta, but you can make pink by just doing red and white. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to go right back over this, but I'm also going to bleed the color in together right in the middle, back and forth, and I'm actually going to bring it up so it looks like my colors were fading into each other. Because if you don't fade them together, then it looks just very bold colors, very bold lines. So if you work the paint back and forth in that area, it'll actually bleed together. And I'm just going to do the same thing all the way down. Again, make sure that it's wet. You'll notice if it's not wet because your paint will look thicker. Just work it back and forth, back and forth. As you can see, I'm going all the way back up, and I'm just bleeding my colors in together. And then I'm going to have to pick up my canvas here so I can get the bottom of it. And I'm actually picking up a little bit more paint. It's not as watery down here because I want it to be a little bit thicker instead of watercolor down at the bottom. There you go. So most of my owl went away. That's alright. We can go back with some chalk. At the top here, it had a little bit of black that we're going to add in at the very top. So just make sure, again, watery. And you're just going to pick up a little bit of black. And if you don't want to do the black, you don't have to. Because if you do too much black, it'll muddy up your canvas. And all you're doing is you're going to do light pressure, very light pressure. And you're just going to graze your canvas with that black on your paintbrush. Very, very light. You can see that it's really, really light up here. Because we want our owl to stand out. We don't want our background to be the main part of the picture. We want our owl to be the main part of the picture. So you can bring your black down to however far you want to bring it down. It's mainly just going to be this kind of top corner part that you're going to bring that black down to. Alright. So there's our colors. So obviously the more water that you put on it, it's going to look like watercolor. If you don't want to do a lot of water, you do not have to. And you can do the background in segments of colors. So like that darker blue up here into the lighter blue, mixed into the pink, into the darker pink. You can do that also. But that's pretty much going to be your background of your colors. So all of my watercolor pencil did go away, and that is definitely okay. Whoops. So basically right now what we have to do is we have to wait for it to dry a little bit. And I could actually go ahead and start marking out some of that. So with our owl, what you had showed me was brown, but it looks like a reddish brown. I'm going to stick with trying to do kind of the color that you sent me. That color that's on there for the owl's head is more of like a burnt sienna, so it's going to be like a reddish brown. It's kind of hard to mix together. It's a lot easier if you just go by like a burnt sienna. Yeah, it's much easier to just go by burnt sienna. So basically, if you want to go by that, go by that. If not, you can mix brown with a little bit of red. I did brown and red, so red and brown right here. And I mixed that together and I added a little bit of white. That's pretty much the color that we're going to end up with then, at least for me. For you, if you want to go by those colors, you can. It's going to be more of your reddish brown with some white in it. And maybe a little bit of yellow. But up to you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of draw out my owl. Can't see most of it, but I pretty much know where it's at. So when we draw out our owl, it's going to be that U shape here. So I'm going to use the same brush that I had here because I know that I have to cover a lot of ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the U shape wherever my owl was. So there's my U for my head. And then I'm going to use the same paint, and I'm pretty much going to make my whole owl itself, and I'll cover everything else up later. So I'm going to make my little ears, and I just kind of did 2 little angles right there for my ears. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw kind of my body, the giant kind of belly of the owl. If you are painting straight like this, I would go small with your owl, and then you could always go bigger afterwards, but it's harder to cover up when you go bigger. So go small first and then go bigger later. So okay, so got my owl kind of eyed out here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint it that entire color, and then we're going to go back in and we're going to detail out everything else. Alright, so I'm just going to fill everything in, and then I'm going to make my owl probably a little bit bigger, because I don't think I made it big enough. Like I said, it's kind of hard to realize what your canvas is going to do with your paint, because sometimes whenever you paint on new canvases or different canvases, it's going to pick up the paint differently. So mine is just not picking up the paint. So I'm just really working with my background of my canvas, because it's not picking up my paint at all. I've got multitude of colors in here because I'm mixing mine. I've got red, I've got a little bit of yellow, I've got brown, so I've got all sorts of colors, and it's going to give my owl a lot of dimension because I'm mixing my color itself rather than buying the color. Alright. I've got a nice fat owl. What'd you think? Looks like a fat owl to me. Perched on a branch. Nice round body. Okay, so now that I have my owl, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my branch because I want some of this to dry a little bit. So let's go ahead and mark off our branch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a smaller brush, and I'm always going to use the edge, this part of the brush. So when I paint, I'm not going to paint up and down like this. I'm going to paint like this because I want a thin line. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get that wet, and I'm going to basically just mark out my owl, the branch. I'm going to mark out my owl's branch. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm just going to use straight brown because we're going to go back and we're going to darken it and then give some highlights to it. So just straight brown that you're going to pick up on here. Again, it does not have to be perfect. All we're doing is just marking out where we want our owl to be on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start over here on the corner looking at the picture that you gave me. I'm going to start with this big tree right here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight up. I'm going to go over, and then the tree kind of comes over this way, and it goes around. And it doesn't have to be perfect because remember, we're going to make this thicker. And it goes down and around like this. So it looks sloppy now. That's okay. we're just marking out our tree branch. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to break off that other one that's over here. Well, actually, I forgot to do our moon. Huh! Sorry. Let's do the moon. I jumped ahead. That's okay. Take the same brush that we're doing, and we're just going to pick up white. Sorry, Zoe. I skipped ahead of myself. Forgot there was a moon in the background. We'll just cover up a little bit of this. So all you're going to do right now is you're going to draw your moon in the background. Big circle. And then we're going to fill in our circle. And I'm picking up some of my paint, which is totally fine with me because that gives it some dimension from that branch. The moon is getting a little oval like. I am so sorry, Zoe. I can't believe I forgot our moon. That was my fault. So, I think my moon seems pretty circular. It's kind of hard to do that. And I'm actually, because I don't think moons are just straight up white, you can actually pick up just a little bit of blue, or you can do gray, and just kind of mix in a little bit of those colors in there, because the moon is not straight up white. And all I'm doing is I'm just kind of mixing my color in there just a little bit. A little bit of that yellow in there. And I'm just kind of putting it wherever gives the background of the moon just a little bit of color. Now, you don't have to do that. You can actually just keep it white, but I'll show you what it looks like up close, if I can get it close. So you see kind of my moon's, you know, really blue, yellow, white. Now, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. Alright, so, sorry Zoe for skipped around a little bit there. While that's drying a little bit, let's go ahead and do our bottom one down here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to build up just a little kind of bump or curve where we want our owl to perch its feet on. And then we've got one of those little curly Q branches, very whimsical branch. And it's going to cut up and over. And it's going to meet back down over here. And then now, this branch, this is the really big one. Okay, so this is like our main branch here. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to build up this branch and make it just a little bit thicker. Just a little bit thicker. So you could do this a couple ways. You could just outline it like this. So now I have two. Or you can turn your paintbrush to the width of your paintbrush here and do it that way. I feel like you get more control if you just do it like a line. And then all you're going to do is you're just going to paint in your tree branch. And again, you can make it as thin or as thick as you want. Now, the cool thing about this is you can even pick up a color or two, like white on here. And you can just bring white, just a little bit of white on the edge of here. And it kind of gives it a little bit more of a dimension. Gives it some shading. And all we're doing is we're just building up our branch. So the harder you push, the thicker your branch is going to be. So I'm just picking up some white on here. There's my branch. We'll go back in and add some highlights and stuff right now. We're just going to get our branch. Okay, so now we're going to build up our big branch again. Same thing, brown. Brown is going to be our branch here. And I'm just going to build it up. So like we did on this other one, I put 2 different lines. I'm going to do the same thing. And I'm just going to bring it all the way over here into the far corner. And I'm going to just follow this line right here. Just going to build this up. You can go over your moon, and it's okay if the colors blend in together. That's all right. I know mine are because mine's going to be quite wet, and I'm sure yours is, since you're the one following me. There you go. And then all we're going to do is we're just going to fill in this brown branch. And again, I'm picking up just a little bit of color here and there, white, picking up a little bit of white. I'm just going to put that in there on my branch, giving it just a little bit of pre-color. Just a little bit of pre-color before we do all of our highlights and lowlights to the branch to give it more of a dimension, a realistic feel rather than a flat feel. Okay, now I'm going to build it all the way over to here. Oh, I hope you're doing good, Zoe. I'm sure you are. I've seen your other paintings. You are quite the artist. Alright, so there's that branch. Now we're going to build another one right off here to the top corner on the left. And it's going to make kind of a curlicue. Now you can start from the base of this and build your way out, or you can go opposite and build your way back. I feel like it's easier to build my way back. I don't know why. So I'm just going to do a little curlicue and build my way back to the branch. There you go. There's our curlicue. Alright, so now we've got our owl and we've got our branch all done. What we're going to do is we're going to go back to our owl, and we're going to take dark brown or brown, whichever one you have, and we're going to use the same brush that we have, small one, which this one's about, I don't know, 1/2 inch kind of brush. Let me see. Does it look like 1/2 inch? Yeah, 1/2 inch. What we're going to do is we're going to do our teardrops on our owl, and I'm just using straight brown. You can put a little bit of red into your brown if you want. Just pick a little bit up on your paintbrush here. And remember, we're doing those teardrops. So I'm going to, right where there's that curvature into the owls right here, that's where how high we're going to end up going. So there's the end part of the wing, and then I'm just going to mimic it. Now I'm building my wings out further than what the actual painting that you sent me. I just feel that I actually like it better with the wings a little bit further than the owl's body actually. So then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint this brown. And then we'll go back and we'll add our feathers. Now I have a little bit of red in mind just because I'm giving it some more dimension to it. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. It makes it a little bit more whimsical when you add different colors to kind of mimic the colors of the bird's wings. Alright, so I've got my owl wing here. Now guess what? We have to do it to the other side. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and it's a little bit more difficult because you want things to look symmetrical. But I can tell you right now, I almost never make things symmetrical. No, it's not too shabby. I think that one's a little bit bigger, which is okay because I can always make this one bigger. I feel like it doesn't match the other wing, but not too bad. Okay, now we just need to paint our wing. Dark brown color. So, now we've got our wings. I feel like that one, sticking my head in front of the camera, sorry. Still feel like that one's a little bit bigger, which I'll just kind of make this wing a little bit bigger. And you'll come to find that you will consistently not make your painting symmetrical, but nah, it's alright. Gives it character. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to block out our eyes on our owl. And so currently what we have is blue eyes and white in the middle. So I've got blue, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take blue and white and make a little bit of a light blue, because this one's not quite blue, and I actually think it's more of a green blue, so it's kind of like a sea foam color. So if you want, you pick up a little bit of green in your blue and your white and mix it together, and you'll get kind of like sea foam color. Not quite teal, but more of just a sea foam color, because the owl actually has lines. I saw some line details in there. So, sea foam. We're just going to call it sea foam. Sea foam, greenish blue kind of color. Okay, so I'm going to use the same paintbrush that I have here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw two big eyes right next to each other. Two big circles. And it's okay if you crisscross in between them, because they actually have a pretty thick outline for your owl. The owl's eyes. Alright, so as you can see, they're like seafoam green, and then you're just going to build a border. So you're just going to make these just a little bit thicker is all. You're just going to kind of build them inwards until you get another smaller circle in the middle, because that's where we're going to put our white. So you can see how I'm just making this circle thicker, and I'm building from the outside in. So I'm just kind of making rings. Ring inside of a ring inside of a ring, until however small I want my eyeball to be. Or big, whichever one. So, I feel like those are pretty good. We're going to go with that. Alright, so we're going to go back to our wings. And so what we're going to be doing, so that same kind of sea foam that we used, we're going to kind of put that into our bird's feathers there and kind of bring out that color. So first thing what we're going to do is we're going to make our brown just a little bit darker. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to be using a tiny bit of black. Tiny bit of black. I need some more brown. Tiny bit of black to make it a little bit darker. then I'm going to add a tiny bit of red. Red and black. And the reason why is because I want it to show up, because we did this brown and I want it to show up. So I'm adding a little bit of red to it so you can actually stand out. That red will stand out on there. So it's like a red-brown, but more on the darker side. And so all we're going to do is we're going to take the same brush here if you want to. And what we're going to do is we're going to work outside in. Okay, so we're going to work from the out corner in, and we're going to create those feathers. Okay, so it's kind of like a curve inwards. And what you're going to do is you're going to hold your paintbrush so the thin side is down, not the thick. And when you push down on it, let's see if I can show you on here. So when I push down, I don't know if, here we go. I'm going to push down like this, and I do the curve like that. I did that upside down. So I'm going to start here on the corner, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, a little bit outside of the owl's feather, or the wing, and you're going to push down, and you're going to bring it in. See? Push down and bring in. And you're just going to do a couple of those, 3 or 4 of them. Leave a gap, because we're going to be putting another color in there. So you want to make sure that you don't have too much so they're too close together. And then you can just pick up more red as you go up. Ooh, a little bit of water, too much water there. That's alright. Pick up some more red. Yep. So you can see that I've got my owl feathers. There you go. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to pick up, I'm going to do the same thing on the other side since I'm still using that same color. And I'm just going to push down, bring in. Push down, pull up. Push down, pull up. Push down, pull up. Push down, pull up. And it just kind of gives you the illusion of owl wings and feathers. See, starting to look kind of like an owl. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up some of the that bluish seafoam green, and I'm just going to kind of do a couple of those little flicks in there, give it some color. So again, that was the blue and the green and a little bit of white, and that gives you your seafoam color. And I'm just going to do a couple little flicks in here. Push down and pull. Push down and pull. Push down and pull. See, I've got the little blue in there. Now this is pretty light, so if you don't want to do this light, that's okay. You can make it as dark as you want. Push down, pull. Push down and pull. You can make long ones, you can make short ones. There you go. And then I'm going to add a little bit of red. A little bit of red. Not much, just a little bit of red to kind of pick up some of the red in the feathers here. And I'm just kind of sporadically putting them on there, bringing them up around the owl's wing. It's kind of like however you feel your owl, where it needs the feathers. You know, I feel like it's very brown up here, so I'm just going to kind of pick up a little bit of that red and put a little bit of red into my owl's feather here, just sporadically. There you go. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do our belly here. So I'm going to pick up yellow. Yellow and some brown. Yellow and brown. Not too much brown because then it kind of looks like yucky mustard. But yellow and brown pretty much is what we're going to go with. It's more of like a yellow ochre, I believe is the color of what it's called. So what we're going to do is we're going to make our lovely owl belly here. Now that we've got our owl belly, we get to fill in Mr. Owl Belly. We're just going to fill that whole thing in a little bit yellow. Don't have to be too methodic about the painting here. I feel like when you see the paintbrush strokes, it actually gives your painting more character. I feel like, especially in the belly area, if you leave those paintbrush strokes, it gives the bird kind of the feathers. Okay, so then now what we're going to do is I'm going to add just a tiny bit of like blue down in here, just actually a tiny bit of green, just a little bit of green. Tiny bit on the corner of your paintbrush, just a little bit. And I'm actually going to bring the green into the belly here. See how I brought the green into the belly? Again, it's just to give the bird more dimension. So I brought some green into my bird's belly. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to do my beak. Let's go ahead and make the beak. And again, you can do the same paintbrush here. And I'm just going to pick up some yellow. And I'm going to make my beak. And I'm going to do it just actually, I'm going to make orange, but more yellow orange. Not orange orange, just more yellow orange. Because I don't want it to be the same color as my belly. So I'm going to do more of like a yellow orange. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to do same shape here, which was that teardrop shape, or you can do a circle and then put a point at the end of it, whichever you feel. So I'm going to do, so I did a kind of circle first and then my beak. Now mine is running into my bird's belly. That's okay. Kind of a ice cream cone shape. So, ice cream cone shape. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into here. I'm going to put white in my eyes. You can pick up some white on your paintbrush. And I'm just going to paint white into the eyes here. Okay, I'm going to do the other one. There you go. There's my owl's eyes. And then let's go back to the tree here. Let's add some highlights to our tree. And what we're going to do is we're going to do kind of like that reddish brown that we're going to add into the highlights. We're going to add in some like black and brown. And all we're doing is we're just doing some lines just to make it look like bark. So I'm going to use the same paintbrush here, and I'm going to do that reddish brown color. So I'm going to pick up my red and my brown, kind of mix it together, get my reddish brown, and you can do whichever color you prefer. And all you're going to do is you're just going to make bark lines, and they don't have to be symmetrical. All they're doing is making it look like bark. You can do thick ones, you can do thin ones, whatever you prefer. Do it on wherever you want to put them. Yep, all the way up. There, we got some red in here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to do a light brown, which is just going to be white and brown. And I'm going to pick up some light colors. Now keep in mind your moon is up here, so you're going to look for the highlighted portions on your tree. So it's going to be the top sides of your tree. You can even add a little bit of yellow in there. So the top portion of the tree there. Wherever you want to put it. However many lines you want to put. Okay, and then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to add a little bit of like the dark brown, the black and dark brown there. And I'm going to do it on this back edge over in here. Same thing, just kind of to pick up those deep colors into the tree branch here. And I'm going to do it on the underneath portion of the tree because that one doesn't see much sunlight. So I got all those multicolors in here, and the cool part, what you can do here, is we're going to add a little bit of that beautiful blue color. That beautiful blue, because then that'll make the tree really pop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up that kind of seafoam color. I'm not going to put a whole bunch, but I'm just going to do a little bit to kind of incorporate the whole thing together. So I'm going to pick up a little bit like right over here, right where you know the moon is going to hit. So like right on the top, I know that the moon's going to hit this, and I know the moon's going to hit the top portion of here. Maybe just a little bit on the back end here. And then same thing up here. I know the moon's going to hit a little bit up on the top here, definitely on the side. So I'm going to put just a couple really pretty blue. Just a little bit. Coming down the edge here. Just enough to be like, ooh. And we'll go back in, we'll put a little bit of white to highlight just certain areas. So I'm just going to pick up some white, and I'm just going to highlight kind of right where we did the blue. I'm going to highlight some of the blue, just to highlight the branches. You're just going to sporadically put them on there. Be very careful on how much white you put, because it will overpower the painting. You just want it to where you think the moon is going to hit certain areas of the tree. Yeah, just a little bit here and there, not many. Alright, so looks kind of like a multicolored tree, but very whimsical. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get a smaller brush. You can do a small flat brush or small round brush. This is a round. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in and I'm going to add our eyeballs. And I'm going to do I'm going to do sea foam just because I'm going to do a black circle underneath it, or I'm sorry, over top of it. And I don't want to mess up and get the black too much in there. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to add my sea foam eye. Same thing on the other side, sea foam eye. And then while I have the same color, so if you looked on the owl, they had lines, and you're going to use the same color on the sea foam, except you're just going to make it more blue. So it's just going to be a little bit bluer rather than green. And so what they have is they just have just lines coming out of the owl on the eyes. Now, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. It's up to you if you want to add the owl eyes on these lines. It's kind of your preference on what you like. Just a couple more here. So, kind of your owl eyes there. If you don't want them, you don't have to add them. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go back in, I'm going to add the black. And I'm only going to do part of that eye because I still want that sea foam to show through, so I'm only going to do part of that eye. So the corner portion towards the beak, I'm going to make black. Kind of a little black bead. And do the same thing on the other one, little black bead. And again, you can make your black bead as big or as little as you want. And then once that black bead dries, we're going to put a white bead in it. So let's go ahead and take this same brush because we can do the kind of detail portions on this. So let's go ahead and start detailing our bird. We're going to put little brown little feathers up here at the top, so I'm going to pick up some brown. And I'm just going to do about 3. I don't know why, but odd looks much better. I'm going to do 3 little tufts of feathers. And I'm going to start outwards and pull in. So let's see, kind of like how we did that right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go push, pull, push, pull. That's going to be our little tufts. Push and pull. And I'm just doing straight brown. So I'm just going to go push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. See? Little tufts. Little tufts. Same thing on the other side. Push and pull. Push, pull, push, flick, push, pull. That's going to be our owl. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're just going to kind of highlight our bird. We're going to do our little ribs, little kind of feathers there. And I'm going to use just straight brown. You can pretty much pick, you know, that orangey color if you want to do the orange. You can do brown, whichever one. You can do a mixture of it. So I'm going to do brown here, and you're just going to do little U's. Small U's, big U's, whichever one you want. And you're just going to paint some U's. Do a couple of them, a couple rows. So I've got 2 or 3 rows. I'm going to do kind of like an orangey one. I'm going to do another one right here. There's our lovely bird feathers there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to highlight a little bit of our beak. Pick up some white, highlight our beak just a little bit, and all we're going to do is just put a little bit of color onto our beak, and it's going to be like a yellow, light yellow, almost like canary yellow, and all you're going to do is just kind of pull a little strip down onto your beak. Just a little strip on the beak to highlight that. Let's go ahead and do our feet down here. And what you're going to do is I'm going to do kind of orange feet. I think orange looks kind of cool on the owl. So yellow and red if you want to do it that way. Unless you have orange, you can do it that way too. And same thing, kind of like how we did the push and pull, you can do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my bird actually touches the branch here. So I'm going to push and just kind of drag the feet, drag inwards. And I'm going to do, this one has 3, so we're going to do 3. So push and then drag. So it's pressure and then pull up. Pressure, pull up. Pressure, and then drag it upwards. If you want, you can even do like U's, little oval U's. You can do that too if you want, if the push and pull is too difficult. And I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm going to push really hard, I'm just going to pull upwards. I'm going to push really hard, and I'm going to pull up. I'm going to push really hard, and I'm going to pull up. There's my lovely owl feet. Alright, so our owl is almost done. Let's go ahead and start doing some leaves. You're going to pick up green on your paintbrush here. And I'm using the same one that we've been using. It's easier to control since it's a small one. And you can do your leaves kind of however you want to do them. Easiest way to do them is like 2 parentheses next to each other, except it's going to be more of a point at the top. So, kind of like that. So, in and in, like 2 parentheses with a point. And then you're just going to fill that in. There's your green. And then offset them just a little bit. There you go. And I'm going to pick up a little bit of brown in this one, because I want them to be a little bit different. So mine's going to be more of like a brownish color leaf. So there's those 2 leaves. I'm going to put 2 down here. So I'm going to pick up the same color green, and I'm just going to there's that one. You can even pick up a little bit of yellow in here. Get those leaves there. And do another one. Now if you put the leaves on top of each other, then it looks like the leaf is on top of each other. So I'm going to do this one on top of that one, so it looks like it's in front. Now we're going to do some leaves up at the top here. You can put your leaves anywhere you want. I'm just kind of doing what's actually on. Actual painting up here. And then I'm going to do another one, and I'm going to do a little bit more yellow on this next one. Okay, yellow-green. So it stands out. See? Yellow-green on that. Then I'm going to do a couple, 3 over here. And this one I'm going to do more of a yellow-green because the moon is actually really close on this side, so I feel like it's going to be hitting a lot of that light. So I feel like that one should be a little bit lighter. And I'm going to do... And you can make them as small or as big as you want. We're going to do a couple more here and here, and then we've got last minute details, and then we're done! So, let's do some leaves over here. We're going to do a small one like right about there. And then we're going to do another one right here. These are the simplest leaves to do. And I'm going to do a couple leaves over here. And then I'm going to do another one. do this one like right on the edge. A small one right there. Okay, what else do I see here? I think most of that is done. Let's do our little dot on our little owl's eye. Let's see, a little yellow dot. Little yellow dot. Yellow dot. Okay, so this is what you get to do. Is you can outline your owl, and what I suggest doing if you're going to outline the owl is to do this brown, so you get like a really thin brush like that, really, really thin, and I'll kind of show you on what to do. So you'll just take your thin brush and you'll just outline your owl all the way around. Make sure that it's thin, because if it's too thick, you won't be able to glide very well, so just make sure it's thin. And all you're going to do is you're just going to outline certain things on your owl, like the beak, and you can do brown again here, or you can do black. I feel like black would be too harsh, so stick with brown, and you can just kind of outline your owl to kind of give it some dimension, some life. Yeah, just kind of outline your owl. Here I would do more of like that light brown, like around the owl's wings, because you already used dark brown. So just pick up some little light brown. Again, make sure that it's fairly thin, and you're just going to kind of outline the owl. You don't have to outline the whole thing, but just a little bit here and there. A little bit here and there. You can even pull a couple. Just be creative. Same thing with the belly down here. You're going to pick up the brown, and also the brown up here. And you're just going to outline your bird. See, now that it stands out, it actually is starting to look like your owl. So that's pretty much what your owl is going to be. I'll bring it closer so you can see, but this is pretty much it. So we've got the multicolors on the branches, because it's picking up all the colors of your owl. And all the way down here, we've got the black on the back end, because that's the shadow end. And then you could always go back in to highlight your leaves. Pick up that round brush that I showed you before. You can actually just pick up a little bit lighter of that color that you put down. So let's say we want to make this a little bit lighter. So you're going to pick up green and some white, and you can just make a little strip. You can use that seafoam color. That would be pretty on some of these leaves. Make that seafoam color on some of them. So like up here on one of these branches, let's do like this one right here. I'm going to pull that seafoam color. You know, just kind of tag in all of those colors together on your leaf, and it'll actually bring all your colors together. You can even put brown on one of them. Yep, brown on some of your leaves. But this way that you can pull all of those colors in. That way it doesn't look like a green leaf. Just be creative with it. So yeah, as you can see, I put like blue right over here, blue on the leaf. Over here I did yellow and blue. But yeah. I hope this was a good tutorial. Always make sure to sign your artwork. Can't not sign your artwork there. Alright, so have your mom give me text or call or anything if you need any other assistance, but hope this works for you, and I can't wait to see what your painting is going to look like. Bye, Zoe.